Hello and welcome back or welcome to the channel. I'm Loudguns and in today's video we're going to be recapping, to my mind, one of the coolest concept ships in Star Citizen, the Drake Ironclad. Now I know this ship was announced some time ago, but this is how I tend to like to look at concepts, allowing the knee-jerk reactions to pass and letting more information come out before taking a deep dive into what we do know. And arguably I get more excited about these ships when their release is somewhat more imminent. I know that guessing the dates of when things may come out is an easy way to get egg on your face in SC, and delays are always possible. But the Ironclad was featured in the 1 year forward release silhouettes at last year's SitCon. So since it didn't turn up at Invictus, it's a pretty reasonable bet to feature at IAE this year. So if this sounds good to you, then grab a cup of tea while I roll the intro, then let's get into it. The Drake Ironclad comes as two variants which have currently been announced. The base model, which is positioned as a large, robust cargo hauler, and the Ironclad Assault variant, with more of a focus on ground vehicle transport and deployment. When it comes to cargo in particular, there is a bit of a vacuum that the Ironclad is supposed to fill. We've got loads of ships at the lower end, sub 100 SCU, like the Hull A, C1, Freelancers, etc. There are some fleshing out the 150 to 400 range, like the Star Lancer, Connie Taurus, and Hull B. And the 500 to 700 section is pretty well served by the Hercs and the Ironclad's little brother, the Caterpillar. But then there is something of a gulf, as the next step upwards gets you into the territory of the Hull C at north of 4000 SCU, or the Banu Merchantman with its 2.9k and additional onboard shopping facilities. So the Ironclad with its 1536 SCU potentially fills a niche that many haulers will be looking for, and even the Assault with a reduced cargo grid can still do just the right side of 1000 SCU. For each section of this video we'll look at the two ships side by side, since they share quite a lot of common features including their chassis, but they do have some quite meaningful differences which I think are best placed in comparison to one another. One thing I do want to make clear from the start though before we get into it, while I love diving into Star Citizen ships, getting to grips with their various aspects and wondering aloud about how they might be useful in the future, I'm never recommending that anybody goes out and buys these things for hard cash. Your money is your own, and I'm not going to tell you how to spend it, but I will also take every opportunity to remind people that every ship in Star Citizen is going to be made available to earn in-game. And I highly recommend that anyone checking the game out comes in with one of the cheapest possible game packs. If you do happen to be standing on the sidelines, then just be sure to use a referral code when you create an account for some extra starter cash. Mine's the one on screen now, but if you've got any friends who play already, just ask them for theirs. And while I make this point about buying stuff in game, regardless of what type of ship we're talking about, I do feel it particularly in a profession like cargo running. There's something to be said for working your way up from a small hauler to a more substantial freighter and ultimately setting your sights on becoming a trade magnate in your own BMM or Hull E. So without further ado, let's go on and take a look at the Ironclad to see if it makes for a good stepping stone on your journey to master of the trading universe. At 120 meters long, 52 meters wide and 20 meters high, both Ironclads give off, to quote my friend Ravnak, big box vibes. The aesthetic here is Drake to the max, with a decidedly no-frills look, but unlike many of their Drake counterparts, the Ironclads are planned to live up to their name with solid, chunky armour to protect your haul. Both ships will have a total of 4 entrances, with an option to enter either via the command module on the left-hand side, or an airlock on the right-hand side, which both offer dedicated personnel entrances. Meanwhile, the cargo bay has 2 doors, one at the front of the ship with a ramp to allow loading and unloading while on the ground, and a retractable armoured roof. This allows for many creative loading and unloading options when in EVA, and it cements the slightly suspicious nature of the ship, making it a potential favourite for those interested in, shall we say, booty. However, I think it's also huge for the law-abiding citizens of the verse. Within our community frontier, we've run all sorts of operations involving shifting cargo between ships and space. Salvaging nights and loot and shoot events often involve a logistics element responsible for offloading others. And with the recent changes to mining, we've been experimenting with using cargo ships to take the full ore bags and carry plenty of spare empty ones. Having a sliding door like this, offering a massive opening to work with, will just make it so much easier to utilise the space in the hold. Despite this functionality though, the Ironclad is not designed for carrying other ships. The assault is focused on ground vehicles, while the base is cargo oriented. Obviously, this is Star Citizen, and members of the community are 100% going to work out exactly how many of what they can stuff inside. But the devs mentioned in the Q&A responses that the roof doesn't fully retract, and that the dimensions of the hold have been planned around boxes rather than ships. It's also worth explicitly noting that both versions of the Ironclad get the sliding roof, it's not just limited to the base version. And that on the Assault the front of the ship has been tweaked slightly to make a wider ramp, allowing access for the largest ground vehicles like the Nova tank. Of course, it's not just armour defending the Ironclad, there's also a decent amount of guns. Here the two versions differ quite meaningfully given their different purposes, with the base version bringing a mixture of weapons and utility, while the more combat-centric Assault focuses on weapons above all else. On the base version, we've got two man turrets, one with dual-sized 5s while the other has dual-sized 3s. Then there are a further two remote turrets, each with dual-sized 3s. Alongside the guns though, we also have three size 2 tractor beam turrets, controlled from the command deck, allowing you to rapidly load or unload cargo. On the Assault, it's all about firepower though, with those tractor beam turrets given over to providing additional guns. I particularly love this concept image where you can see the 4 turrets mounted alongside the front ramp, as well as the one mounted on the underbelly, allowing you to bombard a landing zone before you set down and deploy your vehicles. Both ships have a further size 2 turret mounted actually inside the cargo bay. As far as I know, this is the first example of an interior defense turret that we've seen, although during the sitcon segment on Starbases last year we did see some included in station defense. I love this though, and think that this sort of thought being put into defending against boarding actions is huge for cargo ships. Hopefully it's just something we can see a bit more of. For the most part, components seem to be size 3 large variants for the main ship, with 2 power plants, 2 coolers and 4 shield generators, as well as the standard jump drives and quantum drives. There are a number of size 1 components also listed, but these are for the command module, which as we'll come on to in a second, can operate independently. To round things off, there are 3 size 2 computers, 2 size 3 hydro tanks and 2 size 3 quantum fuel tanks. Based on the stats released so far, in terms of components at least, both versions seem identical. The ship is piloted from the command module on the left hand side, and similarly to the plan for the Drake Caterpillar, this is intended to detach from the ship if necessary. This is something that we've been waiting on with the Cat for quite some time now, but John Crew mentioned in the Ironclad ISC that with the new tech that's been developed, I'm assuming around modularity here, that it's far closer to reality. It was confirmed in the Q&A that the command module will have its own quantum drive on board, so you're not going to be limited to hydrogen engine travel. The devs seem quite focused on the idea of the command module as an escape vehicle, that would allow you to detach and save yourselves along with any crewmates you deem worthy. And indeed, if there are consequences for death in the future that made it something worth avoiding, a lot of talk has gone on around death of the spacemen, then you could take this option. Probably in a situation where you're getting pirated, pirates would be more focused on securing the contents of your hold rather than tracking down the smaller module to take out the crew. And it was mentioned in the Q&A that each section of the ship will have an independent self-destruct, so you could set the cargo section to self-destruct and blow up while you make a quick escape in the command module. However, when I look at this, I'm more interested in the possibilities for enhancing efficiency. I can imagine that the Ironclads will be perfect for ferrying stuff between space and ground bases, potentially unloading a much larger freighter like a Hull C or even D or E. That is shipped in vast quantities of cargo, but is restricted from entering atmosphere. The Ironclad could then be used to take this from space to surface, and if you had more than one cargo section, you could set up a highly efficient chain where the command modules are used to bring the cargo down, then detach to go back out of atmo, and just get another one to be brought planetside while the first one's being unloaded, just meaning that your flight crew don't have to hang around. And similarly in the case of the assault variant, the command module might make sense to use as more of a scout ship, to go and look for a good landing spot before bringing in and risking the vehicles. Once you leave the command module, you can make your way via a split staircase to either the crew quarters nestled in the top rear of the ship, or the rest of the habitation. It's Drake, so I wouldn't expect luxury here, but you chances are will get at least sleeping space for the Max 6 crew, food prep areas and hygiene facilities. Even Drake pilots need to shower sometimes. The rear section also houses the engineering room, nestled amongst the 10 massive engines that power the ship forward. The command deck may look like a bridge, but you won't have the option to actually fly the ship from here. Instead, it's the control center for all of the other functions. So on the base version, you'll have the control seats for your tractor beam turrets to load and unload your cargo, and the view out from this deck is going to give you and your team a great perspective for planning, bringing things in and out. But of course, the main feature of the Ironclad is its giant cargo hold. On the base version, this has space for 1,536 SCU of freight. Importantly, this is one of those areas where it's impossible not to see the benefit that newer ships have over old ones. They've been designed with the newer box size variations in mind. CIG haven't given us the exact layout yet, but 1,536 does divide perfectly into 32, with a possible 48 of the largest boxes. My org mate Busky was recently showing me these two concepts that he'd found, made by a member of the community using the SC cargo space tool. Just as a quick aside, this is a really cool website, and if you're interested in planning out or visualizing the cargo space of your ships, do check it out. I'll include a link down in the video description. Personally, I'd be hoping for the version with a central aisle, just as it would make separating various cargo for different drops and accessing certain crates that much easier. The hold is ringed by a gantry, giving you easy access and a way to navigate around the ship, but also providing you with the high ground in the event that you had to protect your cargo during an attempted boarding action. I love this sort of verticality, and it provides a nice tie-in with the Drake Caterpillar, although hopefully without interfering with the cargo grid in the way that the Caterpillar's one does. On the base version, these gantries lead into a further secure cargo area at the front of the ship, providing a space for your most valuable pieces of loot. The devs mentioned that they drew inspiration from police evidence lockers, with the individual cages slowing down anyone looking for your best belongings. Although I'm also reminded of the holdout rooms that merchant ships had during the Age of Sail, providing a highly defensible point that many pirates may decide isn't worth the added risk and time to breach. They'll just stop at taking your basic cargo from your main hold. At the time of the Q&A, the team hadn't worked out exactly where to place an armory on board the assault version, since it would make sense for this ship to have one, but they noted that replacing this secure loot room would be the logical place. To the rear underneath the command deck, there is a separate storage area designed to park smaller vehicles. Obviously, given the manufacturer, a lot of the artwork and concept white box features Drake mules, but this would be a great spot for Argo Atlases. On the Ironclad Assault, the cargo bay is slightly shortened. We've got space here for 4 Nova tanks, so to get it pictured in my head, I'm just imagining 2 C2 holds bolted together. The chopped off space towards the rear is given over to a vehicle repair bay, allowing you to fix up smaller vehicles and get them back out into the action. And this makes the Assault not so much a dropship as an entire forward operating base for vehicle patrols. As per the Q&A, this repair bay will also be capable of repairing components. The Assault can also of course be used as a hauler, although with these alterations its grid is reduced to 1,152 SCU. I'm always interested to think about alternative uses for vehicles when they get announced, and while the focus of all the CIG produced material around the Assault is very much on the dropship role, with the still respectable cargo capacity in those repair facilities, I'm wondering about using the Assault as a salvaging support ship. You've got plenty of space on board for RMC and loot, and the facilities to spruce up any recovered components. You can just use them, or you could sell them on and add to your profits, which all seems like a bit of a winner to me. So I hope you enjoyed this rundown of the Drake Ironclad and Ironclad Assault. And like I said at the start, I actually really like doing these concept reviews after quite a bit of time has passed. They just let me see things which have been clarified in the Q&As, and I've got more time to dive into everything. However, I do of course make mistakes from time to time, so if you did spot anything, do just let me know down in the comments and I'll pin any corrections that need to be made. But do also let me know what you think. Are you itching to get your hands on this beast, or are there other cargo haulers and transports that you think are better suited to the niche? Or would you like to see another manufacturer make a cargo ship in the same sort of SCU space as the Ironclad? If you did enjoy the vid and think I've earned it, then I would massively appreciate it if you hit like and subscribed if you haven't already. I'm always amazed at how what was my COVID hobby has grown, and we're getting awfully close to 30,000 subscribers, which does just blow my mind. With all that said, I just want to say thank you very much for watching to the end, and I look forward to seeing you next time.